Well, here we are, the last day at the Auburn Church of Christ, being on staff as the preaching minister. And, it's really an interesting day. I've just been reflecting on my years of ministry and the transitions that we've gone through at different times and different things that God has called us to. I think about my first full-time job in St. Petersburg, Florida at the Northwest Church of Christ when I preached one of my very first sermons as a full-time minister. And the preacher there, Jim Shannon, who's actually retiring at the end of this year, he had been preaching there forever, for 20-something years, and people were just so used to hearing Jim, and he hadn't had a break from preaching in forever. So after I preached probably my very first sermon at that congregation in 2006, I was in the foyer and someone said to me, you might just make a little Jim one of these days. And I remember a friend of mine named Barry, who's probably watching this, said, no, you don't need to be a little Jim. You just Matt. God made you Matt. The God didn't make you to be Jim. And I thought that was so insightful and so kind and so gracious and so true. There was this idea that I had at that time. I was an associate minister. I was not the preaching minister. And I didn't get a Bible degree in undergraduate. I got a psychology degree. I wasn't coming into college thinking I'd ever be a minister. I didn't go into grad school thinking I'd be a minister. It kind of came around later. So I kind of had some time in other areas and other places, and I didn't come in being a preacher. I came in as an associate minister. And I had this idea early on that's kind of stuck with me ever since is congregational life is spiritual life. Congregational life is not a business. And when we treat congregational life like a business, we run it like a business, like we're making business decisions and we're trying to go higher up the ranks and the ladder of the corporate church business world, just is not a spiritual idea. It's not a biblical idea. So I never had this idea that I'm kind of graduating to preaching ministry and that I'm working my way to the top of some kind of chain or some kind of ladder. So when I got into preaching ministry after 7.5 years of associate ministry, I didn't necessarily really see it as a promotion. I just saw it as a calling. What does God want next? Is this what He wants us to do? We moved out to California, and we did that for a couple of years, came to Auburn, and we've been here for 4.5 years, and we're leaving traditional ministry to go into church planting. And it's not a promotion, it's not a demotion, it's not a sideways move, it's just a calling. And I think sometimes that those of us in ministry can wrap our identity up in the ministry profession, and we get just so used to speaking to so many people and having this idea that we're heard. I was a youngest child. I like to be heard because when you're a kid and you're the youngest, sometimes you really doubt that anyone's really listening to you. And sometimes us youngest children seek out positions where we think that people are really going to listen to us. Well, the truth of the matter is in preaching, people are still not listening very well. And the most important messages that we preach have to be repeated over and over and over again. So we really need to see our congregational life, not from a professional lens, not from a specialized lens, not from a position to say, well, people are finally listening to me or I have a word to say. We really need to see it as a calling, as a spiritual vocation, not as a professionalized, specialized, corporate ladder type succession thing. And when we see it from that perspective, we're going to have a lot more healthy ministry, and we're going to be able to a lot more easily and more adeptly follow where Jesus is calling us and be open to the kind of changes that He's calling us to. If we go back to the Bible and we look at people who were called by Jesus or called by God, whether it was Isaiah or Jeremiah or Peter or Andrew or James or John, these were not promotions in a worldly sense. These were some tough things that they were being called into. Read the book of Jeremiah. He went through hell. Look at James and John. Peter, they were all martyred at some point. I mean, these are not corporate ladder moves. These are not safe moves. We're not called to safety. We're called to faithfulness. And I think that's a real important distinction, that we need to be seeking God. We need to be seeking His face. We need to be in His presence so that we can be in tune with His will to go where He calls us, to do what He wills for us to do. And at the end of the day, as Jesus said in the Gospel of Luke, we are just unworthy servants, just doing our jobs, because God truly is in charge. He's the King of the kingdom. It all belongs to Him. It doesn't belong to us. And so as we move into smaller audience, not hundreds of people gathered in an auditorium on Sunday and all that, I have nothing wrapped up in the dynamics of all of that. It's just what does God really want most? What has He equipped us for? What has He prepared us for? What has He inclined our hearts toward? so that we can be going about doing the work that He has called us to do, to be faithful to the tasks that He's put before us. And God can call us to many, many things, and He always prepares us, and He always provides us for the things that He calls us to and He calls us for. And so we need to be people of faith. We need to be people of faithfulness. That's going to take risk. And the more people who I talk to who have jumped out say, there is never a moment in your life that's any more intensely rewarding than when you really step out in faith and put it all on the line and just see how God shows up. Because when we don't put things on the line, I'm not really having faith in God. I'm having faith in myself and my own ability to make good decisions or plan well. But when I put it all on the line and I risk it for the kingdom, and I'm not just saying just on a whim, through prayerful conviction, through fasting, through praying, through many conversations with godly people to discern what God's will is, and then to put it all on the line and say, if God doesn't show up, this is going to fall apart, and watch God work. And just watch God work. And He will do amazing things. He will do seemingly impossible things. He will come through in the most crazy of ways, at the most crazy of times, because He is stretching and growing our faith that is not done in a way when we go about doing it the safe route. No, I'm not saying be disorderly. I'm not saying be disruptive. I'm not saying be obnoxious. I'm not saying do something stupid. I'm saying follow Jesus and submit to His life in the kingdom. Now, the last thing that I want to say in this video is this. I have realized in the last couple of years, and it's finally all come together in the last few weeks, maybe last month or two. I think maybe one of the biggest issues in our lives for many of us is we have control issues. We are people of faith, but we're not really living by faith. We're living with the illusion that we are still in control, that we're maintaining control. And when we live that way and we plan that way and we decide accordingly, then we're not really leaning into the power of God. We're not really living by faith or faithfulness to what God has called us to. It doesn't mean we're lost. I'm not saying you're lost because you don't trust God enough. I'm just saying that we really don't have opportunity for our faith to be grown, stretched, or challenged as long as we're not truly living as if God's involvement in our life is essential, because it is. And if we're living any other way to that, we're just fooling ourselves. So this is my encouragement to you today. Walk by faith, not by sight. And God is so pleased with that. And when you do that, you are going to give God opportunity to show up in places you've never seen Him show up before, and to do things in ways you've never seen Him do before, because your plan did not require God to show up for your plan to be successful. And maybe we're a little bit afraid if we make a God-sized plan and God doesn't show up, then it's going to make God look bad or make us look bad. It's not about looking good or bad. It's about faithfulness. How is the most faithful way you could live your life, and what would that look like today? And begin diving into that and watch what God does with that. So I'm in the office. I'm packing up boxes, cleaning up books, taking it home. I'll show you the home workspace in the next video that we're kind of renovating and putting together to bring the office home. But my plan is not just to be at home. My plan is to be out. My plan is to be in neighborhoods. My plan is to connect with people and pray with people and talk with people about Jesus and find them where they are. Look for people of peace. Find inroads into our communities and begin planting more and more networks of these house churches, this backyard church prayerfully movement. We hope and pray that God would see fit to make it such. And I'm thankful for your support. I'm thankful for your prayers. I'm going to put a link in the video description to our prayer team. We have a prayer team praying over this, and I want people from all over the world on our prayer team. I want to know that when we ask for prayer on something, that because we're asking prayer for God on everything we're trying to do, that there are people all over the world who are praying for the success of this mission. And if this is something you want to support financially, I'm going to put a giving link in the description. And there's no pressure in that, but I do want you to know how to get involved if you want to get involved. And because God is moving and God is doing amazing things, and we're going to share these stories. We've shared just a few, but there are more stories to share of what God is lining up and how He's lining up. And so, yes, this is my last day at Auburn Church of Christ. Tomorrow is my first day with Backyard Church full on, and we are very excited about what God is doing. We don't have all of our I's dotted. We don't have all of our T's crossed. We don't even have near the kind of money raised we need to raise. but God will provide. If I had it all lined up before we started, it wouldn't be of faith. And so here we are. Let's go. Put it all on the line. Watch and see what God does, and then we'll have stories to tell. And I challenge you to do this in your own life. Give God the room to move in ways that you can't foresee, and then you'll have these amazing God stories that will build other people's faith. God bless you. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe. Tell a friend. It's free to share these things. Throw it on social media. See, if I say on Facebook, please share this, Facebook shuts it down, but I can say it here in the video. I would love for you to share this with a friend. I would love for you to share this link on Twitter or Facebook to just let more people know what God is doing. This is not about Matt. This is not about even Auburn Church. This is not about Backyard Church. This is about the kingdom of God. God is amazing. He is good. He is faithful, and He has shown Himself and proved Himself over and over and over and over again. It's amazing. Can't wait to tell you more about it, and we'll talk soon. God bless you.